Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Let's Cover Korea. dGon here, alongside Wolf, as we just finished the penultimate week of the LCK. We started the ultimate round here, round 4, and yet again, more craziness, more upsets, and so many new viewers. So hello, if this is your first time watching here at Let's Cover Korea. Wolf, there was a little event that happened recently called Homeground. The T1 Homeground just happened over at the KeSPA Dome, their second Homeground of the year. And just like earlier this year, they had 2 matches. But unlike earlier this year, where they played 2 teams that ended up in the Rise group, they had to play 2 teams in the Legend group. And for the first time since Homegrounds have started, they lost both of their series at the Homeground. So,
and it's the first time since 2024 they lost a series and then lost both. So they made a first time loss streak, as you're saying. I don't know how the Homeground itself went. I had people who were there. I have a lot of friends who were there. I had Kenzie who was there, who was sending me photos and videos of some of the performances they had.
For
to give you guys,
LCK.
Yeah, to give you guys the I think a lot of people don't understand that this is not what we show on the LCK is the game that happens on these Homeground days. That is actually just a small part of what these events are. They get idol groups to go there. They have performances. Sometimes the players do performances. I don't know exactly what they did this time around, but I know in years past the players have done on-stage performances of some kind, like performance arts type stuff, whether it's singing or showcasing one of their special talents or whatever. These are huge events. This is a massive stadium. This is where the LCK finals will be. So mirroring last year's Homeground that T1 did at Inspired, which then was where the LCK finals were held. This year, it's the same thing where it's at KSPA Dome, which is a LCK finals sized venue for a Homeground match. Now, it's Legend Group, and both their opponents are quite notable this week. So it is, it's not a surprise that this fills up and stuff, but I just want to put it in perspective. This is a huge event that takes a lot of planning, a lot of rehearsals. It requires the players don't just show up and do the Homeground and by that I mean they don't just show up, sit down at their computers, play a normal League of Legends game like they do at LoL Park, and then go home. There's a lot of extra responsibilities for them, including walkout rehearsals, which the other teams have to do as well. I just mean to say that, like Diablo not going to the fan meet, for example, last time around, like you go to the fan meet, you go to the other fan meet, you go to the interview, you go to the press conference, you go to all the other pre-recorded, or not pre-recorded, but pre-planned stuff that you're going to do there. It's a lot of responsibility of the players. So when they lose on the Homeground, I think a lot of people's first response is, but they had the fan support. How could they lose? But I think it's sometimes larger than that, in that there's a lot of extra pressure on these players to perform because it's a celebration of the org. When T1 runs these, especially, it's a celebration of the org, and also games are happening there as a part of that. That's the LCK part of that, but for T1, there's so much more there. Like, for example, recently in one of their other Homegrounds, they announced KeSPA's contract, right? And all that stuff. So, as far as I know, there wasn't any special announcement. This one, which was reported on, which I know is controversial, but again, this is that type of event. It's that type of event. So it's huge. Like, it is so big. I can't like, the pressure is not, in my opinion, the pressure is not on the OA teams because of all the other things that are happening there. That's my bottom line on this.
The one thing I'd push back on is there was a reveal of sorts. Someone who had been with the org, then had to leave for a little bit and revealed again as a guest, not in an official capacity. Roach was former coach Roach, who left to do his military service, was back and kind of like welcomed back there. I don't know if there's a contractual thing. I did not see that, but I did see a picture of him there. Part of it, there was a circus That's actually what day one act was, Wolf. I love that. And then they had performances. Day two, they had performances. Or the third day, they had performances as well. Day two is usually Valorant, I think. But ultimately, a big celebration for T1, the org, T1, the fans. But they lost both their series here, Wolf. So they lost the first one against dPlus KIA, and then lose this second one today, or I guess yesterday now, as of this recording, against Gen.G. And that leads them to one of the longer losing streaks of the season, where they've lost 3 series in a row. It also means that dPlus and Gen.G have the longer winning streaks in the season, which begs the question, Wolf, what is our top 4, given the fact that just a couple weeks ago, dPlus and KT rifle off wins, Gen.G is on a losing streak. We're like, oh, Gen.G's on fire. Now Gen.G's back, T1's reeling, KT also reeling. Hanwha and KT, when they had their Saturday Showdown issue, or Saturday Showdown matchup, we showed the stat. Hanwha Life Esports, since the beginning of MSI, since the end of MSI, beginning of round 3, is last place in terms of their series score and their game score. And then KT was 8th until that series, where then Hanwha beat KT, and I'm sure they swapped since then. But that included both groups. And I think it's made it very difficult to try and figure out who the top teams are. I think we can kind of settle on the fact that Gen.G and dPlus look the best, but T1 and Hanwha now, we know the firepower that those teams have, given the fact that T1, reigning world champs, did very well just a little while ago, had good form, finished went to the 3rd place match over at EWC. And then dPlus has been on fire and beating all the teams, but now have a tough week ahead of them in the future against Hanwha and against Gen.G. It's just such a fascinating year, Wolf.
I think when you look at what's gone on these last few weeks, right, since returning from France, there's been a lot going on. There's been KeSPA Cup running simultaneously with this league. Some teams have indexed into that further than others, obviously, with Hanwha notably just tossing in their challengers roster against DNS and sending it into the blender. You've had expectations be broken, I think, with some of the substitutions we had. We had Painter come in, right? We had Bluffing come in. Neither of those, to me, were series defining necessarily. You could say the Painter one ultimately became that by the end, but I think there were larger issues in both of the series that were played. And, in the Bluffing storyline, how much an impact he made is still unknown. Like, I would like to see more. We saw a big meta shift where teams were taking more, like I think I put it yesterday, more certain fights instead of a little bit more like I'm gonna outhand this. We're just gonna take every fight. We're gonna force this because we think that we'll outplay. I think the meta slowed down a little bit, not in terms of the champions that were being picked, but how they're being used in the early to mid game, which was an adjustment period for dPlus last week. But then this week they look like they are just back in the driver's seat the way that they want to be. And with the results fluctuating from week to week so much and predictions being so bad, basically, but for everybody, like everybody has been so I think the fact that people are having bad predictions, I did have an 8 out of 10 week this week, but I got a little bit lucky with some of those, including like the Nongship prediction that I couldn't even remember that I did.
8 out of 10 is still 8 out of 10. I will call you out when your head gets too big, but this time you're not. You got 8, dude. It's crazy.
But like, I'm not trying to say that, or I don't want to say that I know more than everybody else or anything like that in this situation. I think the fact that the average was like, I think 5 out of 10 for the week means that most people had different takes than me, which maybe means I was wrong, actually. Like, sometimes when you look at predictions, I look at it like, okay, if I'm the outlier, that means I'm probably wrong, actually, because everybody else, like the average person, the average analyst has a different opinion, which means maybe I'm just like way off base, or maybe I'm looking at the game in a very different way. But the fact that we had several weeks where, just generally speaking, on the Korean side and the global side, predictions were bad means to me that things are changing quickly. It means that what looked to be good is like changing, right? What teams look to be strong are actually either failing, or what teams look to be weaker or more muted are actually finding success. So it's a sign of change, and not necessarily a sign of like we're all stupid or anything like that. But the changes that I saw this week were that Gen.G and Dplus look stable. They look good. They look powerful. They look to be in form. And T1 and Hanwha don't look bad, but they made some pretty big choices this week that impact how they performed. And for the side of T1, they put Oner back in for the home ground. And a lot of people, I think, will attribute the poor results to not that Oner played badly, but they shouldn't have been making these changes. Maybe Oner wasn't playing as well as he could have because he wasn't playing or scrimming as much as he would otherwise have because he was playing. He wasn't playing last week and was maybe doing some more focus work with the coaching staff. Who knows what's really going on there? But it's very clear that T1 has intentions to potentially make big changes. I think it'd be a lie if I told everyone that I don't think that the fact that it's a home ground celebrating the main most popular players on T1 may have played a factor in whether Oner started or not. I can't confirm that. To be clear, I cannot know that, and I cannot even assume that, and I don't assume that. But I think if you're 50-50 on it, like, should we play Planner today, and should we play Oner today, and you're literally 50-50 on it, the high-ups will tell you to play Oner in front of that crowd every time. I would if I were in that position. But my point is they're making changes. Hanwha are experimenting. We even know that, for example, Hete is not playing in Challengers right now. That I don't know what that means, but maybe he's getting ready to potentially have a game or two. Again, speculation. But these teams are not making the. Here's what I also want to qualify. I think T1 and Hanwha Life are not making these decisions and these experimentations because they are weak, or that they are bad, or that they are even frankly struggling. I wouldn't even say, but they feel like they're not hitting the way they need to hit to win LCK and win a world championship. They know they're not reaching their full potential, so they're trying to figure out what is a choice we can make to make Delight better, or to make just our bottom lane better. In Hanwha's case, is bluffing subbing in going to make Delight realize something? Or maybe we're going to realize maybe we should be playing more like how Bluffing's playing. Maybe Bluffing is the guy. You're learning something there. Same way with using Painter and that experimentation. So I want to say I think Gen.G and Dplus are our two best teams because this week they were. But maybe because they're not changing that much, and Hanwha and T1 are, Hanwha and T1 could in the future become and grow to be the best teams. Like, that's kind of how I'm feeling where we are right now.
Yeah, and that was going to be my point. The consistency is what my brain is kind of craving here in terms of like safety, right? When we have to put our names out there, skin on the line, and make a prediction, man, the idea of breaking up that DOFPK core is just, it's hard to wrap your mind around. And, we talked about it last time. It was clear to see that Painter was doing a lot of the shot calling. I agree with you here, and we can use the DRX homestand in Vietnam as an example. They're like, yep, Lazy Feels our guy, Lazy Feels our guy. After the homestand, boom, she was back in. And that, I think that was kind of like, a different situation, but similar. Different, but similar. In terms of like, okay, we have this thing that we're known to do. Obviously, Oner is a much better player in his role than I think, and much more established in his org than Lazy Feel is with DRX. So a little different. Same thing with Jiwoo. Oner's still way more established. But I think we're left with all these substitutions other than maybe Frog. But I would say the same thing with aiming. We want to see more. We want to see more tape and know, hey, what is the game plan going into these qualification matches, either for playoffs and the round 2 bye, playoffs just in general, play-ins or getting eliminated. Like, you need to know who you are by this final week. Like, you should already know who you are. Like, Hanjin BRION is the Teddy team. It is Teddy's team with Roamer kind of making sure, he holds whoever at bay and absorbs some pressure, and Gideon will, facilitate. Whereas B&K Fear X, that is a Taeyun team with Kanavi Jr. in Raptor. Like, that is that team. They know who they are. Like, even if Vikla is making you mad and flashing and doing all these crazy things, you still know who B&K Fear X are. With Nongshim, I think they're still figuring it out, and it's taken them longer to try and figure out. With Kiwoom, I think it's the same thing. We know what they should be, which is an aiming team, and put all the resources in aiming.
They don't know how to do it, though. They don't know how to do it. They don't know how to do it yet. It's too late to figure it out, I feel like. So that's
now to do it on the top side, for our Legend Group teams, for them to be like wrangling around is difficult to still then say, yes, but this is the reigning world champs, and this is the MSI champs. And, at the most recent important tournament, Hanwha showed up. And it's like, I want to believe, because I think a great Hanwha Life Esports, when they are playing their best, it is so fun to watch because it is different than what we've seen than other LCK teams. The aggression, it was what Kanavi said in an interview earlier this year. Many of the junglers in the LCK are shields. He wants to bring that LPL sword style into it. He wants to be on the attack, and that's what it looks like. That's what they are, and that is what Ohm is trying to drive home with this substitution with Bluffing and Delight, being like, hey, Delight, I know you're good at engage champs when we engage, but you still got to follow Kanavi. And there's sometimes where we need you to die for a play or a player. I don't know. I can't think of a time off the top of my head, but I didn't VOD review as closely as Ohm did. But the other thing I wanted to shout out is how open and candid and relatively robust the response was that Ohm gave us. He gave us a lot of insight. I wish he would have given it to us before the substitution was made, like that day of. Although, because when we did our pre-show, you were there. We were just kind of guessing. But, afterwards in the post-game, there was a lot there. And I as someone who wants to know more about the team and wants to like cover it more and cover it closer, I very much appreciated that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm always about transparency as long as it's not harmful to anyone, right? Like I think that this is something that we've been really wanting. We talked about it last episode, like how T1 set up the painter substitution. It wasn't a secret. It wasn't a surprise. I mean, it was a late announcement, but they were very open about what they said. We have the same thing going on here with Bluffing, where the communication is overall pretty open-ended in terms of post-game. And then after the painter owner situation, Tom also being very open about what he thought the series looked like. And when Oner was back in, what he thought Oner's performance was like. And, you can look that stuff up. And, he said he was not particularly satisfied with Oner's performance, whatever. I'm not going to get too into that because that's Tom's opinion. That's not the opinions we're talking about on the show today. But I do think that when I see the experimentation we're seeing with Hanwha and T1, it's risky, but I respect that both Tom and Home in this case actually have a read on what they have, a direction they're trying to go in. They know these players better than almost anyone. I would say especially Tom at this point, right? I mean, he spent so long with this roster, even though it's changed a few parts. They know the direction they want to go in, and they know how to, at least I trust that they know that they're making a decision that they think is best for growth and for long term. Because I know we're talking about there's only a little bit of regular season left. There's only 1 week of regular season left with Asia Games this year. But there's still a lot left to play, right? You still got playoffs, and you still have Worlds, which is grueling, and you're playing at so many different teams, so many different play styles. So you really need to know who you are. And even though we thought we knew who T1 and Hanwha were, I think from the coaching staff's perspective and from the results perspective, it's like, I think there's more here. I think we need to push more. And for KT, for example, KT is not in my conversation for who's top dog. KT for me is like already locked in play-ins. Like KT is Dunzo. They made a choice to trade aiming because the players couldn't get along, and that's as much as we know. And now they're really feeling the hurt of it because they replaced aiming with Fenrir as the exact opposite playstyle. Not stable, wants to go all in, needs a lot of resources early game. I want to be aggressive at level 4 randomly when I see that angle. And so instead of because they got rid of him, I mean, they have this guy, and he was doing well until he lost. In my opinion, lost a little bit of confidence after some losses, and is not. He was not playing the same way he played in KeSPA Cup, not playing the same way that he played in his first few games. They put Jiwoo in, but in my opinion, Jiwoo is just budget aiming. He's somewhat stable and can somewhat carry the late game if he's given resources. But for every one death that aiming has that gets ridiculed because he was out of position or he got blitzcrank hooked or whatever the case may be, he's hard farming in the jungle and trying to get he's trying to do his own raptor camp without vision and then die, whatever the case may be. I feel like Jiwoo has 4 more of those just in the mid lane alone, just farming in mid like standard farming. He's not as safe. He's not as stable. And I think KT have way bigger issues than their AD carry, but they're trying to figure out how the AD carry fits into all of this. And I think they have made such a drastic change that's unsalvageable, because this is the difference between T1, Hanwha, and KT is T1 and Hanwha are like, we're trying this thing a little bit, but we got someone that works right over there. We don't like Painter, we don't like bluffing. We go back to what was working and is working very well. KT, it's like, it's not working. Nothing is working. Uh-oh. We put you in, that's also not working. Do we go back to Fenrir, which wasn't working? I think KT cannot... There's not enough time for them. They need the time, whereas T1 and Hanwha are doing some micro tweaks. Right now T1 and Hanwha are changing the tires on the car, whereas KT Rolster is changing the engine and trying to figure out how the car drives with that. So I think Hanwha and T1 will ultimately, and almost already said as much, but I think they will end up with their same rosters. That it's not going to be Painter in playoffs. It's not going to be bluffing. They will end up with their standard rosters, but they'll have learned something and they will play better. But right now, what looks tried and true, what looks solved, what looks like I know my identity, I know every part of my team, is dPlus and Gen.G. They're the teams right now in our top 4 that are, in my opinion, 100% going to playoffs. I don't think KT is going there. They're going to have to play in play-ins, which they will likely win, but they'll have to go through that. I think Gen.G and dPlus know who they are. And even though on Gen.G, they have a game where one player doesn't perform, this happens all the time. It's even happened with Keen, believe it or not. This year, a few games here or there where he's not performing, somebody always picks up the slack. That's usually Chovy. Look at the POM standings. That's why he's up there. He doesn't mess it up. He picks up the slack most of the time. He's at a game here or there where it's his weak game, right? But that's the rarity. And then you look at dPlus, and I feel like they are the most well-rounded team that knows who they are more than anybody else. They know if they're playing through Smash in the bottom lane, they play through Smash in the bottom lane. They know if they're playing through Showmaker. And in the rare case where they're playing through Shiwu, they know exactly what they're trying to do with every draft they bring out. Sometimes they're too confident. Sometimes the early game gets a little shaky. But it's very clear they trust career now. It's very clear CV Max trusts career now. But dPlus they're this dark horse force that I think that you look at them, they're in the 4th place in the standings. People are like, well, they're not Gen.G, Hanwha, or T1. It's cute, but Wolf's gonna have the Felford Award on his jersey, or on his blazer, on his jacket, whatever, next week, because he thinks they're as good. But I actually think they are in a better position than Hanwha and T1 right now. So what Hanwha and T1 are trying might push them past, but dPlus are already there. And the difference between dPlus and Gen.G to me is that dPlus doesn't have weak links. They when they fail altogether. The whole read was wrong. The draft read was wrong. The fight on that dragon where they lost the game, or the dive, in the bottom lane was wrong, and they lose the game together on it. Gen.G, I feel like, don't ever miss the big picture. It's the small picture where things fall apart. And if I had to choose one of those two things that I would prefer, like, do I prefer the team that lives together, dies together, or the team that has weak links? I'd probably pick the lives together, dies together, because I feel like that means everyone's always on the same page, even if that's wrong. And if you can just fix that direction and nobody's ever having underperforming bad days, that's where I'd rather be.
Yeah.
I'm high on dPlus KIA right now. Is my bottom line on this one, dGon.
You know, one final thing to stoke the fire a little bit, but just by reading facts, and I'm looking at this, I'm looking at a graphic right now on Twitter. It has the Challengers logo, and it shows me for T1 Academy, Esports Academy here, Wolf. It shows me Hate, Painter, Guti, Cypher, and Cloud as the starting lineup by T1 Academy against Lancer, Doi, Flip, Enosh, and Quantum. Obviously, that was happening at the Roadshow. And then it's updated, a second graphic that looks exactly the same, except on the top lane is Guardian, not Hate. And Guardian was the one that ended up playing in T1 Academy's, Esports Academy's Challenger Series match against DNS. And Painter still played. So Painter was still in. But just another change. This is Guardian's second series of the year. Not of the week, not of the split, of the year. He played one series in rounds 1 and 2 against KT. They won. He had a 2-1-12 Scion game. That was a big one there for him. He played Olaf into the Kled, 1-6-7 today in decisive game number 3. But what does that mean? I don't know.
Well,
I guess we'll have to find out.
Well, here's a fact, right? Or here's a look at the past, right? Which is factual, but I mean, a trend maybe is what I should say. We have seen, for example, when Fenrir was going to be playing in the LCK and a trade was imminent, what happened with KT? Ghost swaps to AD carry. He's the challengers player, right?
Yep.
We saw that happen. So when you see a change like this, you can often predict what it's going to mean. Solid playing for dPlus, Sharvel to DNS, right?
Yep.
When we saw Painter, Painter was also, I believe, replaced in one of their challengers matches. Painter is with T1 in the arena, not playing, but with them. He then plays in the upcoming week, and only one series, but he does play. And it may have been Hete was being shown the ropes, like, this is how we set up, this is what LCK is like, you got to do this, you got to do this. I don't want you to be nervous about all the walkouts and all that stuff, so let me just kind of show you at the biggest event of all time, by the way, how that all goes. And so you're not going to play in challenges. We're going to be scrimming with you a little bit. We're going to be showing you some of the VODs, and you might be playing instead of Doran. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but there has been a trend of when players disappear off the challengers lineup, it means they're not practicing and playing with the challengers team, because that's a waste of their time if they're going to be subbed in. I think what's really cool about this for T1 is that there's a lot of speculation. Like, maybe Hete is going to be playing. Some people have been asking for this. But T1 hasn't confirmed or denied anything, and they still hold all the cards. They don't have to play Hete. Even if they're prepping Hete day and night, they can just be like, I don't know, I saw that Vayne game from Doran. He looks pretty good. He had a good series. He deserves to stay. We're not going to do it. But they haven't made any decisions. They haven't made any announcements, and we can speculate all we want. But they get to choose, because they can just let their challengers team have Guardian and see how it goes.
Here is the quote from the post-match interview by Coach Tom. The question is, are there likely to be any roster changes for the next LCK match? Head coach Tom. That's something we'll also consider as we practice. I think winning our matches is the most important thing, so I think we'll probably field the players who we believe give the team a better chance of winning. That is... He didn't say yes or no.
It's the most PR answer ever, but it is... that's Tom is good at PR. I think Tom says things that are maybe considered by some people spicy when he wants to. But I think one of the big evolutions of Tom this year is he talks more. He's more transparent. He says more things. To say he wasn't particularly satisfied, which is only a transcript I've seen in English. I haven't actually seen what he said in Korean particularly, so I can't even vouch that that's 1,000% true. But a lot of people who posted it online are notable translators that I personally trust. So I think it's probably fine. It's probably actually what he said. But anyway, to say I wasn't particularly satisfied with Oner's performance is something that he would have like never said. You know, I would say even earlier this year, but in past years. So I like that he says the PR thing because he's holding his cards close to his chest right now because they might still be deciding. You know, there's 2 big series left before we go into playoffs, and once you go into playoffs, I think you want to have a clear direction you want to go into. Is putting Hete into this team right now really worth it? And taking Doran's confidence away if it doesn't work, really worth it? You have to be really sure before you make that choice. So people speculate. I mentioned the pattern. If it were up to me, if you asked me beginning of round 3, if I saw that Challengers Guardians playing, I'd be like, I think they're gonna pull the trigger. I think that it's okay to do that. Right now, I'm kind of feeling like I wouldn't do it. It's too late. Like, don't take Doran's confidence away. You know, if Doran gets subbed out and then Hete bombs and you got to put Doran back in, he might be like, oh, I'm playing for my spot. Like, Doran's never been in that position before.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, again, all of this coming down to the fact that all the teams are trying to qualify for Worlds, except Hanwha Life Esports, who did qualify to Worlds with their victory over KT. It solidified the fact that they would make playoffs, and by right of being MSI champion, as long as you make playoffs, you will make it to Worlds. So if they're top 4, it's great. It's all 4 teams. If for some reason they, which is not what you and I expect, don't make it in the top 4, then it's only the top 3 will be those slots there going to Worlds. But Hanwha Life Esports has solidified their position at Worlds. And again, it shows the highest highs that we know they can be, but they aren't firing out right now and are trying to solve with substitutions like bluffing and like Delight, switching time out there. So we'll see what the future holds for them. All right, before we continue on, it's time to remind you about our partners over at Prize Picks. Now, it's scorching summer with sports, and you can make all your picks on Prize Picks. Women's basketball and baseball are heating up, and every football preseason game kicks off this month on Prize Picks. And with big tennis slams and major golf tournaments on the horizon, there's no better place for all of your summer sports picks than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports picks app. Now, I've been so pumped because, Wolf, you know this, I love to watch the sports news and check out the highlights and highlight reels. And you know what sport is great for that? Football. And we're in the thick of preseason. The pigskin is back. It's high. It's flying. And it allows me to, follow up so I can stack, some game winners, some, of the numbers that I'm looking for some mores or lesses when I am picking my lineups and trying to guess what, projections would be hit here by some of these teams as we head on over. My Denver squad looks really good as well. The preseason is underway, and there's no better place to run your game than Prize Picks, America's #1 sports pick app. We've got star players on new teams and rookie class ready to take over, all while the teams look to get started on the biggest football season yet. Make a lineup with the player stats, pick game winners and totals, or combine your picks with all in the same lineup. All on Prize Picks, now available in all 50 states, including California, Texas, Georgia, and Florida. So make sure to download the app today and use code LCK to get $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineup. That's $150 instantly in lineups if you win your first $5 lineups after downloading the app today and using the code LCK. Now, make sure to go do that only at America's #1 sports picks app. It's Prize Picks. Let's move on to something that we haven't really talked about as much recently, Wolf, because not only were Hanwha Life Esports and Gen.G, teams that clinched something in terms of postseason. But finally, Wolf, my bros, Hanjin BRION did it. A lot of pressure. There was a lot of choking, giving the second victory to the DN Automotive Soopers, and then getting mollywopped by Nongshim Red Force earlier this week. They get the job done against their biggest foe in Kiwoom DRX, who they were 0-3 against throughout the regular season. It takes takes 3 games in this series. It also took 4 games in 4 series in total. And they finally do it. It is the revenge match for Coach Song and for Teddy over their former organization. They have clinched play-ins, but it's not just them, Wolf. The hottest team in the LCK, not named Gen.G or dPlus KIA, is DNS. The DN Automotive Soopers are 4-2, and they look transformed under the young Rook, who just looks like he doesn't know better, but knows that he's the right guy for the job in Sharvel. And it's just unfortunate that they're already out, but they look completely different.
I remember just 1 week ago coming on this show right after I finished casting DNS 2-0ing Gen.G. And I then rode that high to tell everyone that I was thinking they're really good. Sharvel played Kiana well. And then I predicted them to win both series. And everyone's like, he's crazy. They can't do it. It's not going to happen. DNS, that team bad. DNS bad. Number says bad. I don't like it. I'm not saying you said that, dGon, because you were a little skeptical, but you were like, skeptical. okay, I'll take it. Well, there were a lot of people who were like, no. DNS are just DNS, and Gen.G didn't care, and KeSPA Cup isn't real, and whatever. I trusted them. They 2-0 BNK.
Yeah, they do.
Sharvel should not have gotten POM, but they played really well. And like Sharvel's changed this team. I think a lot of people voted for the narrative. A lot of people voted for the hype. A lot of people are like, this guy's funny. This guy's a star, right? I think a lot of I often find that the Korean side, this is my read on it, I should say, just to make sure that everyone doesn't think this is like actually how Korean voters factually vote. But I think when someone's on a hot streak, when somebody is doing well, the Korean voters tend to vote for them because it's about what they bring beyond the game and beyond like what we see with our eye test. It's like, this guy's making impact. This guy is someone you can trust. This guy's a star player. This guy is in Sharvel's case, bringing so much energy to the team that there is a value in what's even unseen in terms of, again, the League of Legends game being played. That is why DNS are winning. I think there's no denying that Duckdom is playing better now, and there is no rational reason except that Sharvel is playing better than Pioshik, and Sharvel is doing some shot calling, and Sharvel is being a confidence booster, and Sharvel's calling him the world finalist bottom laner alongside Peter, who's playing also better recently. So I'm sad that it took so late or took so long to make this decision. Like, if they had been able to pick him up earlier or make a larger change earlier, who knows where this roster would be. But we know that they're the best team in Rise Group right now, which is so absurd, but it's true. I pulled this stat up yesterday when they won. I think it's a fun story. I think they're going to win KeSPA Cup. I think they're going to win the whole tournament because I think they are likely going to play against T1's Challengers team and beat them. I think there's a chance that they could beat T1's main team after the exhaustion that is everything they've just done with the home ground, now having to travel to dGon. As someone who didn't go to the home ground but just commentated a week of LCK, recorded Pog State, came on this show, and is in the morning going to travel to dGon and then check into a hotel for 2 seconds and then go cast. Yeah, it's a lot. DNS, by the way, they really care. And I think, I'm not saying that T1 doesn't care about KeSPA Cup, but I think the priority is like, DNS have literally no chance of going to Worlds, no chance of going to play-ins, nothing except KeSPA Cup. So for them, this is like their Worlds, in terms of what they're playing for, what they're fighting for. So I think they care a lot. They're prepping a lot. Goong and the crew are really Say this one up. So I think their streak in LCK matters, not because they're playing spoiler, not because they didn't go to play-ins, but it's tied to this really important tournament for them. And KeSPA Cup, I think, has been laughed off by a lot of people, pushed back by a lot of people. Oh, the teams didn't even play their real rosters, whatever. But for me, it's a celebration of playing both teams and some really cool combinations we wouldn't have otherwise seen. And it could be DNS lifts a trophy the same way Bro just 2 years ago did the same thing.
Tournament of Champions of the Rise Group. We'll see what happens here. I mean, the same thing for Nongshim, right? I assume that they're going to field their full roster, and it's an opportunity for them to win hardware. And again, like, yes, this is not the LCK in the full season, but KeSPA Cup is a tournament that carries prestige with it, carries cash with it, and can carry momentum for all the teams except DNS. That's T1, that's Nongshim that are waiting there in the finals. So going to be very exciting to keep your eyes out for that one, and watch and see, what is T1 going to do? Like, who are they playing? Who are they starting? We know who DNS is starting. We haven't seen Nongshim's academy team in there. It's been their main roster. So what is the game plan is the question on everyone's mind here, Wolf. If you had to guess, what would it be?
I think T1 is going to field their challengers roster. The only thing that's weird about that is their challengers roster is a little ambiguous right now with Guardian playing in the top lane. But maybe Hete is playing in KeSPA Cup since he didn't play in the home ground, even though he might have been there and prepared to play for it if you know that they were getting ready for that type of eventuality. I think it's best if I'm T1, the challengers team is really good, especially if Hete is playing. The challengers team is really good. Good enough to where they could beat DNS, even on form DNS, if they have a good day. It's a best of 5, right? And T1 just did all of those extremely, as we talked about at the beginning of the show, extremely time-consuming and energy-consuming non-League of Legends things while also losing 0-2 at their home ground to have to then be like, so, guys, you're getting on a KTX train tomorrow. I don't see it. I don't see it. Like, I don't think they're going to make them do that. I don't even, and someone might be like, but what if they punish them by making them play? I don't think that's good. No, that's stupid. Like, what? I think it's probably in T1's best interest to not do that to their players and trust their challengers players and celebrate their challengers players in a different way while they're focusing up for their really big games in LCK.
I agree.
What would be really funny is if the challengers team wins and then they send the main team to play the finals.
No.
Won't happen. That won't happen. That's the funniest situation. What's also funny is if they send their main team and DNS beats them. Except that's not funny. That's tragic. That's a bigger blow to their morale, which is another reason why they won't do it. I think it's challengers team 100%. Probably with Hete, but we'll see.
Yeah.
If it's not with Hete, this conspiracy theory on Hete potentially playing an LCK going up.
I think it's a little tougher because anytime you travel for a team type thing and T1's attached to it, I feel like that also means the circus. But I mean, the circus was just there for MSI. I don't know. I'm not sure.
For reference, it's about an hour-long train. It's like, it's a high-speed bullet train type train. It's called the KTX. It's about an hour train to get from Seoul to dGon. Now, to get to Incheon, or it's not even Incheon. It's not even Paradise. It's not even Inspire. Actually, KSPO is basically in Seoul. So that part isn't extra really travel. But for T1 to get from Seoul to dGon would take about an hour of travel. I'm not, just so people understand, I'm not saying they're like on like a 6-hour train or something like that to get a dGon. It's not that crazy, but it is travel.
Yeah. I think logically, Academy makes sense from a business standpoint. It's usually the guys. It's usually the circus and the main team. So I think Academy also wins out, but who knows? We will see. All right, Wolf. let's get into predictions for next week. The final week of action here in the LCK. I can't believe that we're already there. It is partially because of
Asia
Asian
Games.
Games.
Taking my regular season away.
I know, like one more of the round.
Come on.
Especially, like last year, right? Like last year, it was pretty much the tier list were the results. But imagine if we got one more round of this for this year. Like that would have been so insane, and DNS would still be alive. Like, unlucky DNS. But we knew what it was at the beginning of the year, so picked a bad time to peak. Let's get to it. Gen.G KT.
Wednesday's pretty easy, I think. It's a pretty easy Gen.G vote. KT not in form, 80 carry question mark, BDD question mark, Cuz question mark. Perfect is Perfect the best player on this roster right now? I don't know. His like perfect effort. I hold BDD to an incredibly high standard. I think this is not a secret, but I'll say it again. BDD is my favorite player. So I hold him to a really high standard. I don't think he is performing as well as he was earlier this year. And as I already waffled on about for Gen.G right now, I think they're in our top 2. So that's an easy one. And I think DNS ride the momentum. DNS might be coming back from dGon like me. DNS and me, we're the same. I'm going to go cast the KeSPA Cup finals. They're going to go win the KeSPA Cup finals. And then we might even be on the same train back to play on Wednesday. I'm going to be casting. They're going to be playing. I'm on the pre-show on Wednesday, so I'll have to be there even earlier. But we're gonna conquer dGon together. We're gonna come back to Seoul together, and DNS will beat Bro, and I will talk about Bro losing. That's where I'm at. We're together, me and Sharvel.
That's crazy. Yeah. Bro, get the revenge. Give me that one. And Gen.G as well. Yeah. Thursday, dPlus and Hanwha. It's the beginning of dPlus's very, very difficult week. Same thing with Hanwha. Like Hanwha has dPlus, then T1 later on, but this is dPlus and Hanwha, then Nongshim versus Kiwoom DRX, which is almost an elimination match here for the Rise Group play-ins opportunities. For me, I just think that when in the past, when we've had a underdog team, a non-top 3 team, have an opportunity to beat difficult teams back to back, they haven't been able to do it. And I don't see dPlus doing it against Gen.G. I do see them doing it against Hanwha, who are still trying to figure out what they want out of the bot lane. Give me dPlus. And give me Kiwoom DRX. Like, they were close to winning today against Hanjin BRION, and it was just a base defense that they got a little too excited about because they had Elder. They forced it. Otherwise, they would have been up 1-0. They showed the resilience necessary to come back in the face of adversity, in the face of a soul, and I think that bodes well. They have the easiest path to learn how to play with their new parts. It is the aiming show. That is Kiwoom DRX's new identity by opting into picking up this player in a trade and playing him. If you're going to play him, this is the way you win. Play around it. So give me that over Nongshim, who just is flip a coin. Nongshim is a flip a coin team, Wolf. He is the KT. They are the KT of the Rise Group.
It literally is a flip a coin for the Nongshim Kiwoom DRX. I imagine this prediction will probably be split about 50-50 across our team. I'm going to go Nongshim because I think there's a lot on the line. They have the veteran squad. They have, I think, better drafting than Kiwoom DRX. Kiwoom DRX is drafting pretty decent today overall at time of recording on Sunday. I just expect Nongshim to win out, but it's a 50-50. So I think this prediction is basically a guessing game. Whereas when I look at dPlus Hanwha, I see matchups, and I see Zeka, who's had a bit of a fall off. I see Career, who's insanely on form, versus probably Delight, but maybe not Delight. And I see Smash versus Guma, and I think of the rivalry, and I think of Smash overall looking like he's ready. He wants it so bad, like he wants to take over the mantle again and be like, "It's me. I was always the one." You know, like I'm talking narratives here,
Yeah.
and I just think that if Hanwha wins, it's Zeus Kanavi, you know, and I'm like they have to be so good, and I think they can win. Like this is not as coin flippy for me. I'm kind of like 55 D plus, like a slightly weighted coin, and 45 Hanwha. But I'm so high on the run that D plus are having. No funding, right? Like we don't know what's happening. We don't even know if these players are getting paid. But ever since that news came out and like that weight was off the org's back, this team is doing really well. They stumbled that one time. They got right back on the horse, right back up in form. Took out T1, right? Took out KT cleanly. Last time against KT, that's week where they stumbled, where they lost to T1. It was like coin flippy games where, you know, who wins the early game wins the whole thing. It's a boring game. Looked totally different this time. Like that was like a big sign for me. I was like, okay, against KT last time, awkward, barely winning, weird, whatever, coin flip per game. And then it was like, no, we're the better team. You guys aren't even in the same conversation as us. I'm going D plus as well. I think the miracle run is happening for this team. The momentum is real. So D plus Nongshim.
I also forgot to hit on this earlier. The career jumping into CV Max's arms and straddling him with excitement, I would say, is I think that's an accurate statement of what is happening in the clip. It at the T1 home ground just kind of shows how close this team is, and one of the reasons why I think they've been functioning so well. Maybe it's not the most optimal strategy or optimal drafts every time, but there's so much trust between this squad right now. It's one of the reasons why they are the hottest team in the league. They are 5-1 since the break, and it's why they still have a chance at still sneaking a bye away.
Isn't it crazy that just earlier this year, when Career got emotional and upset, people were like, CV Max abuse. It's crazy.
Yeah.
He takes these young players and hurts them. And here we are. And it's I don't know. I said back then what I'll say now. Like sometimes you have to know that you don't know what's going on behind the scenes when you see something like that, because I think this is the biggest examples of like community sentiment swapping, flipping, going the exact opposite way when you see something like this. I will say only this about CV Max and Career. When I see them in the arena, when I see them on stage the same way you guys see them, there is absolutely a mutual respect and kind of like sensei student understanding between them that is it's like Karate Kid. Like it's I don't know how it is. It's Yoda and Luke Skywalker. It's like a, you know, there's definitely a relationship where like they challenge each other a little bit, but ultimately, you know, there's such a bond. I don't see this between a player and a coach I don't see players talk to any coach and have respect for coach and talk to their ex-coaches around the arena like I see with CV Max ever. He is the one that players always go back to when they're ex players underneath him. And you can say what you will about CV Max's drafting, because I have been as well. Some of these drafts left me a little bit unhappy. There's some serious trust with this team. They look like they're all on the same page. Maybe it's shared hardship that they're all going through right now within the org, but there's some magic here. Anyway,
Yeah.
I don't want to get too much on it.
Nongshim and Kiwoom, who'd you pick there? We were flipping a coin.
Oh, I went Nongshim. I'm going Nongshim on this one. I'm
Okay.
flipping red.
Okay. Friday. Hanjin BRION versus BNK, then KT versus T1 in the final telecom war of the regular season.
I think I have to go BNK, right? I mean, I think they're a good team, even though they lost to DNS. I think that's more about DNS being really good than it is about BNK being bad. I mean, if you go back and watch those games, I think you'd probably come to the same conclusion. And I think it's a tough week for Bro, right? I mean, they're playing against the team that's actually standings wise, basically at the top in BNK.
And the hottest team in the league, yeah.
and the hottest team in DNS, right? Bro secured their spot. They're above BNK at the moment by 3 games because they had a really big streak earlier on this in the season where we were like, are they going to be legend team? But I think BNK are on better form right now, and they've figured out how to play around team. I'm going to go BNK on this one.
I've got the Bros here. I think this winning streak will be fantastic for them, and I think they line up pretty well. This is like one of the few lanes where if you just frazzle him, if you just get him to, recall and then, accidentally hit both flash and teleport at the same time, I think this is where Romer can take the lead.
I forgot about Vikla. No, maybe I made a mistake. I'm still going to keep my pred, but I forgot about Vikla. Vikla. You buy the wrong item, refund the wrong item, press F for no reason. I don't know. Oh my God.
The telecom war is where I think if you were brave, I think you could pick KT here. I think it could be a tough week for T1 and a tough run for T1, and KT could sneak it here if they could just find some confidence. They don't even need to win against Gen.G, but if they could find some confidence. But I can't do it. I won't do it. I think T1 finally get it together here and end the streak of losses against their good old rival in a confused KT Rolster.
Interestingly, I hadn't realized T1 don't play until Friday. So if you go back to the dGon conversation we had before, at least if they do go as their main roster, they have until Friday. They have a long break. That's part of also why I'll say I think they'll win. Either they have a really long break or they have the shorter but still decent break after dGon, and they're coming off potentially a win at KeSPA Cup. So I'm low on KT. Refer to earlier tonight.
Okay. DPlus and Gen.G, and then DNS versus Kiwoom DRX, which could be an elimination game for Kiwoom. Here for me, this is what I was talking about earlier, Wolf. I think Gen.G are in much better form than when they last played and got clipped by surprise, I'd say, against DPlus. And also, I think it's just too hard for DPlus, for CV Max to try and plan for both Hanwha Life Esports and Gen.G. I mean, Hanwha, when humming at full potential, is a complete team with a very difficult to plan for early game identity. With Gen.G, when they're humming at full capacity, there isn't an easy lane to play through. Maybe the jungle, but Canyon's really good at absorbing that, right? Like that's Canyon's kind of power here, controlling type thing. So I don't know, man. It's just a little too tough for me to go a double D+ week here in a top 2 team show, prove it kind of match. So Gen.G is the one that I'm going to take it for here. And Gen.G will continue their streak to 6 games into the playoffs.
I really like your logic because, I mean, for Gen.G, they have the KT match, which is probably a freebie based on what we expect earlier in the week. And then D+ have that Hanwha match. So if you look at the preparation, it's way tougher for D+. And they just haven't been... They haven't been able to do this when people think they would. You know what I mean? Like every time you think D+ is good, they disappoint you. Chronicler fell for the ward, etc., etc. But right now, I believe in the magic. Right now, I actually think this team is going to do it. I'm ready. I'm ready to fall for it. I'm ready to fall for it. I believe the magic, because you know what happened at EWC? They had the miracle win. They had the true shot barrage timing. They I lost my voice. They took Gen.G out. They won against the French crowd. And what did they do when they played against Gen.G the next time, only I predicted this. They won again when they played against Gen.G the next time because I don't know. I thought like they're really good. They did it last time. Like I'm gonna just stick with. I think they'll do it again, and I think third time's the charm. I think they will once again beat Gen.G in a surprising fashion. You know, Gen.G will play a good series, but they get caught out a few times. It'll be a great performance from Smash. Maybe Showmaker picks up the POM because he makes some flashy plays. It might be career. I mean, honestly, that's my ideal world if I'm predicting who's going to win because I'm feeling like career is went from I can't pick the correct runes in KeSPA Cup last year to like he's into being nervous and shaky on stage to going and doing interviews with us at on the global side on the space. So now he's a superstar. He's an EWC champion. I'm going D plus. I'm believing in the magic. You can't stop me, dGon.
Gosh, that's crazy. They win a couple times against the Northern Front, and then they forget the lesson that Showmaker had to learn. What was it, 20-something times? Golly.
That's a throwback. I totally forgot about the Northern Front now.
I know because they obliterated it. DNS and Kiwoom. I'll believe in the Kiwoom magic. They end in a fantastic feeling victory. That also means that Kiwoom DRX would be 8-18, and that's because I think they beat Nongshim, which means that final match for Nongshim is going to be everything for them. But go ahead. What you got?
But DNS, I mean, come on. They just won KeSPA Cup. They just beat Bro. They're on their streak. Easiest DNS pred. I mean, seriously, actually, I think of the last few DNS preds I've done, like this is the easiest one. I'm going DNS for
all right.
Again, reasons already stated.
And then Hanwha versus T1. It is the orange tank against the royal red to close out the regular season, and then BNK and Nongshim, which I don't think will mean anything by this point because of Kiwoom. It's going to be mostly up to Kiwoom. Kiwoom needs to win one of the two. Actually, I think Kiwoom needs to beat Nongshim to have a chance, to have a fighting chance to make it on in. If they lose to Nongshim, it's already over. But yeah, Hanwha and T1 here, Wolf.
I have this feeling like what's going to happen in the series is going to be based on what happens in both teams' previous results, right? Like if KT do upset T1, then I feel like T1 goes 0-2 on the week. You know, it's like, oh, that can't happen. Like momentum is totally against them. Like that wasn't supposed to happen. For Hanwha, if they lose to D plus, they might also be shaky. But if T1's also losing, then I would go with Hanwha. You know what I mean? Like, just because they seem to have the tougher week. Like if they lost to D plus, that means I would feel less bad about that than losing to KT. I kind of feel overall Faker's on a bit of a tear, even in losses. Like he looks really good. Yeah. I think Oner, contrary to a lot of fan frustration, I think is actually doing okay right now. I feel like people weren't even putting Oner that much under the microscope, except like when he played Pantheon. You know what I mean? Like we weren't even putting him that much on the microscope until Painter came in, and everyone's like, "I knew it. He was the problem." I'm like, "What? Why didn't you say that before?"
Yeah.
I think that Pays versus Guma is the most interesting one. You don't even know if Delight is playing or not, but probably is. I think when you look at when we look at the support meta, especially with how Carrier likes to play it and how Delight will have to match, it's going to be a 1v1 down there. You know, like a lot of the time, a lot of drafts. Like Guma loves to play Jin. You know, it might be Jin versus Ezreal, something like that. It might be Guma on Xayah. You know, he's been playing a lot of Xayah. Xayah's coming back a little bit against whatever Pays is playing. Lucian, you know, he's playing Ezreal. He's hopefully not playing Ziggs. Hopefully neither of these players are playing Ziggs. But it could be a Ziggs game in there. I could see it on either side. Both these players are really good Ziggs players. I think a few weeks ago, I would have been like, Pays wins every time. But right now, I'm kind of like, I think it's super volatile. And I don't even know. I feel like Pays has more responsibility because of how T1 play. He's like Teddy but legend version. Like it's like Pays has to play well, and if he has a bad day, or if he gets caught, or Kanavi gets him, it's like, well, GG. If Guma dies and gets caught, then it's like, well, I mean, we play through Zeus anyways a lot of the time. We've got Zeko, we've got Kanavi to find those engages later. Guma's more util based, and in a lot of drafts, if he's playing Lucian or something else, that's a different thing.
You're waffling a lot, my guy. You're waffling a lot.
But no, it's a really tough pred. I think the ultimate question comes down to, do you think Zeus or Pays will carry more? And I think I vote Pays. I'm gonna go T1.
I think when you are having question marks in the jungle and you have the most understood jungler in the league, the most aggressive jungler in the league, who's being supported by whichever support is going to be in, and know that the job is to follow your most aggressive jungler in the league, I think that spells trouble for T1, especially if, they flip to Painter in the KT series, they flip back to Oner. Like, even if it is Painter, then you're going up against one of the toughest junglers to over communicate about, and his whole thing is communication. I think Kanavi is going to be the difference maker in this series. And let's not forget, Faker, the greatest player of all time, did have a big stinker against Gen.G. So I think that Faker's form coming into it after facing BDD is going to be a big question mark up against my dark horse candidate. He's not going to win it now, but my dark horse candidate for MVP in Zeka, who's had a fantastic season. He's had a great season, and I think the win condition of Pays against Guma, if they play to bot side matchup, like that one is one that you can weigh in T1's favor over the year. But Guma has shown a lot of the time that he's been able to get through on the weak side. It's been these mid-game oopsies that he gets caught and then the chain reaction happens. It literally happened against KT with bluffing in game number 1. But the laning phase wouldn't normally be an issue, and I think that's something that Hanwha is going to rely on. They don't have to change the way they play into T1, whereas T1 is going to have to change the way they play into Hanwha for this matchup. And I think that's what makes it so much harder for T1. So give me Hanwha here in the final match of the regular season for our legend group. And then finally, BNK and Nongshim, which I think is going to be a de facto like playoff preview here between these two squads.
I think I can just keep this one simple. I think BNK, I know this is the rivalry matchup. It's the big one, the trade. I think BNK have been able to utilize Taeyun better. They know how to play through Taeyun. Taeyun has adapted. Taeyun has adapted to BNK's playstyle. Diablo hasn't adapted at all, and Nongshim know how to play through Diablo, but sometimes just don't do it. They just don't know how to do it. They don't draft for it. I got to go BNK here. I think this one, unfortunately, is pretty simple for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the frustrating part about the squad. They know how to do it, and then they're like, I have a window here, I have an angle. It's like that window or that angle doesn't fall within the playthrough Diablo like household. Where is this window? Oh no, there's now 9 windows and it's in the death column of lens. Oh shit. That is Nongshim in a nutshell, but they've done enough damage, and Scout has put together a pretty solid campaign after a very slow start to get them to this position to make it into play-ins. All right, Wolf, we did it. Predictions are now done for the regular season. All that's left to do is to wait and see. But you don't have to wait and see for Elephant Premium, which is here now. Make sure to head on over to lastfreenation.com to go and check that out. You can head on over to the website and make sure you pick us as the channel that you watch for so that we can get paid for all of the content that we bring you. You'll have all of these shows ad-free on whatever platform you use, and you'll have access to our private Discord where you can ask questions like this one, where your favorite shows will answer it. This one is from Kazkar. If you could swap 2 players onto each other's teams in an effort to improve both teams, no poaching, as in no like uh, making one team better than the other. Who would you swap and why, Wolf? If you could swap two players onto each other's teams in an effort to improve both teams, who would you swap and why?
This is an incredibly hard question. Like the first one my mind goes to, which is hilarious, is Jiwoo and aiming. Just put them back. Like aiming makes so much sense on KT. That's how they play. They play through the mid jungle. They play through perfect a lot of the time. Let effort roam and just keep aiming there to just farm it up. And then when he gets to mid game, he goes to mid lane. He takes all the money and then he carries. And BDD is a secondary carry, and you always have a 2-threat composition. And for Q and DRX, it's like, well, just keep Jiwoo and play through him. Don't play lazy feel, and you guys will be fine because you play through Yukao most of the time. And Jiwoo doesn't need as many resources as aiming. As right now, aiming needs money. He plays like he plays like a man starved. He's like, I gotta be super greedy. Surely my team will back me up, except they have no idea how to play through him, and he dies. And that's my initial feel. Maybe when I hear your answer, I'll think of something else off the top, and I'll come up with something.
We talked about this as the potential for next year, my guy. Immediately, my brain went to, I think it makes both teams better. It's Canyon and Sharvel. Put Sharvel up on there to Gen.G and put Canyon down there to DNS. I think maybe this isn't better for Canyon, but I think this is better for both teams, right?
Sure.
I think Canyon might be the loser out of this one, but it gives a little bit more firepower and that same positive energy to Gen.G. The way that when Duro joined the team, I think it also gave that team a little bit more life, a little bit more youthfulness, and it gives you a jungler who will now learn from the best players in the league about not needing to win right here, right now, right? They'll mold him a little bit more of the Canyon way than what he is now, because as you've brought up before, he's willing to flip the game on Kiana, and it's like, okay, no, you don't have to flip the game on Kiana. We've already done this in game 5s with Nidalee. You don't got to do it here with Kiana. I think for DNS, it gives them, now that they've won a couple games, and you could see the confidence back in a lot of these players, it gives them that world-class player in presence to let them know, hey, this is what it takes to be the best every single day, because we've seen flashes from these individuals at individual moments. You have a world finals bot lane. You have Closer, who was behind in T1, but had a career year last year, his best individual year, KEKW, with BRION last year. And then you have Dudu, who's been such a stalwart and continues to make plays on this team that was so sorry. They were sorry. And now to have Canyon to be there to control against worse junglers, or to dominate worse junglers and control better junglers, allows them to function whatever that place is, and allows them a winning mentality. To me, that would be the best swap.
I think that's actually a really good answer, because again, I don't think Canyon would like it, but the answer was, to an effort to improve both teams. And I think that is just accurate. Having someone who's a little bit more veteran in Canyon, but still has the hands, but then getting the guy who's ready to go super in on everything. Not to mention, for Gen.G, it's pretty cost efficient, potentially, to get Sharvel. So who knows? That could be a thing. It's been memed a lot in our community, and the truth might be stranger than fiction, and what could happen next year, we'll have to wait and see.
If you guys at home have a pretty good idea, this is a fun question, and we didn't have a ton of time to think about it. I didn't go through everyone, but that was just a quick one I connected, and I was like, I think this is a play. I think this is why there were whispers about it next year anyways. If you could swap two players onto each other's teams in an effort to improve both teams, who would you swap and why? Let us know in the comments below. Got a lot of comments last week. I hope that we get just as many this week, Wolf. What do you think?
Surely we will. I feel like there'll be so many. Everyone will be so excited about this episode.
We will wait with bated breath. But everyone that's been here on this journey with us and have supported us, I very much appreciate it. Learned a lot about the industry and myself and Wolf this last week. Definitely a lot. So on behalf of everyone, thank you so much for watching and set sailing with us here at Last Free Nation and on Let's Cover Korea. And we'll see you again next week as we break down the teams that made play-ins, made playoffs, and the one team we'll say goodbye to. Bye-bye.